out there at the border with no clothes, in pajamas and sandals. And we were told that we probably had something to do with Obama. Uh, they put a stop to that. So they're holding these veterans that were due for deportation. Sure. They're keeping them here longer. And it was because of that time that we went to Washington. And we were at a luncheon, and he shook our hands, and he even helped us open the banner. He is Mr. Obama. President Obama. So he knows about us.
Yeah, and following your words, Manuel and Valente, you look very well adjusted now. I mean, you're dealing with your society, now you're put in once again, in a position of leadership for a lot of people. Specifically, my question is because in 1968, there was a time of the Tet Offensive, the worst battle encounter of all historic wars in Vietnam. And so you lived some of that, or through it. Did it take you very long, or how long did it take you to find yourself back adjusting to society after you came from those battles?
When I arrived in Vietnam, they were taking troops by the plane loads, 500 at a time. And when I arrived there, within 3 weeks, I was assigned to a CIA unit. I didn't know what a CIA unit was. I didn't know what these people did. They wore clothes just like a civilian. So I wasn't trained for that. The general or the officer that selected me he saw that I was quiet, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink beer, and I did my job. I was more or less like a loner because everyone was smoking pot and drinking. Uh, I didn't know what a CIA unit was. So can you imagine the time that I spent in Vietnam, the things that I saw?
Yes, I can. I can understand specifically. My brother was a captain in the army, and he fought in the Tet Offensive. When he came back, it took him a whole year to start speaking. He was a vegetable for a whole entire year. There was one brother. My other brother was a major, fighter pilot in the Air Force. So they would tell me tales that nobody would believe. But it took them a while to adjust back to our society.
It's kind of, even now, it's 60, and when this happened to us so long ago, I felt I barely beginning to reach the point of releasing everything, and then all of a sudden the removal notice is like, bam, again, you're getting out of this room, ugliness, and then all of a sudden you're shoved right back into it, and it all comes back at you like one, and they're again struggling. Even this day.
Like it never really leaves you, does it?
How can it? For 42 years.
Let me interject something. I'm a Vietnam veteran myself. Wore the Bronze Star also and the Purple Heart. And every time they ask us, when were you in Vietnam? We are still in Vietnam. We brought back the war with us. Much of that thanks to our own government, which is criticizing our other governments for using chemical warfare. Hello, Agent Orange. Yeah. Which it affected our families too, our kids, our wives, our spouses.
Sure.
You know, those around us, they were affected by Agent Orange. So who are we to criticize? And for example, like Manuel is 10% disabled, according to the VA. This guy should have been 100% disabled 30 or 40 years ago. But, you know, they make us jump through hoops and hoops and hoops and hoops and appeal and appeal and appeal. And what is that doing to their PTSD situation? So they're only aggravating an already bad situation by, you know, we went and fought the war. Now we're having to fight a war against our own government. And like they were mentioning about the former, the warriors that are now in detention, Why hell, it doesn't that amount to being POWs in our own, in the country that they went to defend?
Yes.
That's right, yes, yes, you're right,
We
totally
should,
right.
we should also recognize, I mean, obviously I want to go back to presenting solutions, right? We know, I mean, emotionally, it's an emotionally charged situation, but these veterans are willing to continue doing work. I mean, you've already started the movement, and I keep asking for solutions, right? What is
We
the
don't
role of the
have
veterans?
the solution is for probably the government to go back to 1995 and see what uh, President uh, Carter.
Right.
Uh, this is affecting veterans. That anyone who has a green card is liable for deportation
Okay,
if you have a misdemeanor, and obviously if you have a felony,
sure.
you can be deported. That regulation there is the one that is affecting the military veterans.
My belief, if anything, the commander and chief of the military is responsible for our lives.
Thank you. Yes,
Veterans,
yes, very much.
soldiers. He has the power, and he can step up an executive order to stop this disgrace and dishonor of throwing away veterans and treating them like that. Bring them all back and put the families back together. He has the power. It takes the people of the United States to stand up now and say, Mr. Obama, this is why we voted for you. You are the commander in chief of the military. You can do it, and we can stand all the way straight with you on this one.
Well, we're
And
all
it-
standing up with you, Manuel, and Valente, definitely.
That is the solution, and that's the only one. Only one. Government is not, you will not ever change the government. You have to stand up, and that's all it takes.
And we also
And it
have,
will be changed.
right, and we also have to recognize that we are the government. I think that a lot of times in our
All of us.
communities, all of us, I mean, it's not just a legislator who gets elected. You were talking about a process earlier, and the frustration of dealing with the bureaucratic process and administrative ways of how to get to that legislator. In fact, the people who pass the laws, that actually write the legislation, are the staffers. They're the aides. They're not the actual legislator. They come, you build a staff, and the legislator, and I'm not excusing anybody who has said that they were going to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm also, again, what I said earlier is we need to recommit ourselves to that civic process of getting engaged at all the different levels and keeping people accountable. But we are the government, and I want to keep reminding people that because we've almost said we've elected somebody and we've given them carte blanche to represent us, but you also have to understand that they're working for you. And so if there are legislators that are not serving their constituents, or they're not familiar with who their constituents are. I was asking about numbers, data, right? Legislators like numbers and data. Could you talk a little bit about the numbers of folks that you've interacted with, veterans by state, perhaps, that you've known? Call out a few states that you've interacted with, that you know that there are veterans who are in this gray area. What kind of states are represented in this veteran community?
Most strongest one is Texas.
Okay.
Texas has been a very powerful state of taking care of and standing up for those veterans. Then it's California following that. Colorado's Washington, we've been in Washington.
Oh,
But
no.
since through all this process that we've been going since 2010, the 9th, we have on Facebook, we have done petitions, we've done petitions and petitions that I lost count of how many petitions.
We've spoken in front of the governor. All the politicians know who we are.
We went to a White House in every area at the governor's office, I mean the building, all the senators, or what do you call it?
Congress.
Congress, all the offices. We walked to every office, gave a flyer, gave a card, and told them about us. Not one of them.
Well, what's happening here, Manuel, is that war is hell. But peace is purgatory of persecution for you and for the rest of our community. You along with a lot of other people. You're being put on the line, you're being put to wait and wait and wait for what? You didn't wait to go to war. You didn't wait to go serve the country. Now they're telling you to wait. Wait to be deported?
Mira, excuse me just a minute. You mentioned about the congressman working for us. Theoretically, you are correct.
Sure.
But in reality, most of those guys, with the exception of a handful, like maybe Tammy Duckworth, who lost her legs and in the process of losing an arm, and several others, but for the most part, these guys were probably not even Boy Scouts, so they couldn't care less about veterans. A good proof of that is that when Obama came here using the ATM machine here to take his money for his campaign, he promised our veterans in the Rio Grande Valley more than 120,000. The first thing that I will do, my first priority when I become president, is to deliver a VA hospital full service, so they will not have to travel more than 500 miles to get the service they need and they earned. So far, he has not kept his promise. And when I talk to Lloyd Doggett, to Castro, to you name it, Hinojosa, Cuellar, yeah, I'm right behind you. And including our states, I'm right behind you. We don't want you behind us. We want you side by side. Like when we went into combat, we were fighting side by side. Then you should be there fighting for us.
Sure.
But they're not doing it.
And that's correct. And